Liz set a goal to lose 30 pounds in 12 months. The figure below contains a bar graph that describes her weight in months 1 through 12. First, let's take a moment to look at our graph and really study it. We see our title is Liz's weight during a 12-month period. If we look at the x-axis, we see that we have months along the x-axis. So this would be month 1, month 2, month 3, and so on. And as we look at the y-axis, we can see that we have weight, Liz's weight, which is measured in pounds. So here we have 20 pounds, 40 pounds, 60 pounds, but then between those we have other lines marked, and they're halfway between 20 and 40. So halfway between 20 and 40 would be 50. So really we have every 10 pounds marked off, but only every 20 pounds is labeled with a number. So that may come in handy later. Okay, I think we're ready to tackle the question now. It says, what was Liz's initial weight? That word initial is very important. Initial means to begin with, or what was her weight at the beginning? So in the first month. In the first month, we see that this bar goes all the way up to the 180 mark, which means Liz was 180 pounds to begin with. Which of the following figures contains a graph of the function y equals 2x plus 2? Well, this function is in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope. So in this case, our slope is 2. And b is the y-intercept, or where the line crosses the y-axis. So the y-intercept of this graph, or this function, is 2, like the slope. So there are many different ways you could find the answer to this problem, but the first thing I would do is start with the y-intercept, since that's what you would graph first. You have to first plot the point on the y-intercept before using the slope to find another point. So I'm first going to look at my 4 graphs and find the graphs that have the correct y-intercept. So the line should be crossing the y-axis at 2. Let's start with figure 1. In figure 1, this line is crossing the y-axis at 2. 1, 2, and the line's going through the y-axis there. So figure 1 is okay with the y-intercept. Figure 2, however, has the line crossing the y-axis at -2, which means that figure 2 cannot be a correct graph of the function y equals 2x plus 2. So figure 2 is out, which I love. You've eliminated an answer, which means you now have a 33% chance of getting this question right. Now let's look at figure 3. Figure 3 has the y-intercept as 2 because the line is crossing the y-axis at 2. So figure 3 is okay for now. Figure 4 has the y-intercept as -2. This line is crossing the y-axis at -2. So figure 4 is out. We now have a 50-50 chance of getting this question correct because we know that it's either figure 1 or figure 3. Now there is a very quick way you can find the answer, and that is that the slope is positive. And with a positive slope, the line should be increasing when looking from left to right, which means figure 1 is the correct graph of the function y equals 2x plus 2. But if you can't remember that a positive slope means an increasing line from left to right, well then you should actually go on and finish graphing it. So the slope is 2 over 1, 2 being the rise and 1 being the run. So from this point 2 we should rise 2 and run 1. And as you can see, this line does go through that point. You could check it against figure 3 and see that from this y-intercept, if you rise 2 and run 1, this point is not on the graph of this line. Therefore, figure 3 is not the graph of the function y equals 2x plus 2. So, answer choice A, figure 1 is the graph of the function y equals 2x plus 2. Gwendolyn noticed that the number of points she scores during a basketball game is directly related to the number of hours she spends practicing each week. The table below lists Gwendolyn's weekly scores as a function of hours practiced. Let H represent the number of hours practiced and let P represent the number of points scored. Which graph below represents the relationship between the number of hours Gwendolyn practiced and the number of points she scored? Well, if we study these graphs for a minute, we see that on all of our graphs, the x-axis is the number of hours practiced. And those hours are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And if we look at the y-axis, those are all the number of points scored. However, the ranges vary. In our first graph, the number of points scored is between 0 and 9. If you look at our table, the number of points scored for 4 out of our 5 sets of numbers, they're over 9. Just based on that, you could eliminate figure 1 as a possible answer. If we look at figure 2, the range is from 0 to 35, which is the range of our number of points scored in our table. In figure 3, we have from 0 to 45, and again, our number of points falls in that range. And figure 4, 0 to 35, and our number of points scored again falls in that range. So we're focused now on either figure 2, 3, or 4 being the correct answer. If you look at figure 4, all of these bars are even, which means no matter how many hours you practice, Gwendolyn scored the same number of points. And if we look at our table, that's not the case. So we can eliminate figure 4 as a possible answer. Now we've narrowed it down to either figure 2 or figure 3, so we're really going to have to look carefully here. In both figures, it looks like that for 2 hours, she scored about 8 points, which is, in fact, what our data suggests. So let's compare our next bar, which would be the 4. And it's supposed to say that for 4 hours of practice, she scored 14 points. So this one seems to indicate that. And if we look at this one, it actually is above 15. So it should be below 15 to indicate 14 points. So that's too high, which means this data is off right there. And then looking at the last bar, practicing 10 hours, she scores 32 points. Well, you can see that's well above where 32 would be. So there's another mistake in the figure 3 graph. So let's go back to figure 2 because I believe this is the one that represents our data. For 4 hours practicing, we get 14 points, and that is what this bar indicates. 6 hours of practice is 20 points. 6 hours, this does look like it indicates 20 points. 8 hours of practice, 26 points. Right above 25, that looks good. 10 hours of practice, 32 points. So figure 2 is the one that represents our data.